think Colleen had already said that to you anyway.
So do we have quorum? Shall we kick it off, or should we wait another couple of minutes?
I'll tell you, I had trouble getting on. I had the wrong link in my invite for some reason.
Hey, Mike.
I got confused because the agenda has a date of January 21st.
And I just saw that. So my dyslexia kicked in, so my apologies for that.
Logging in, hoping you guys were going to be here.
Myself as well. It's recording now, so Saram, you're ready to start whenever you're prepared.
All right, so shall we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United States
United
of America,
and to the
and the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, that was kind of weak, guys, I got to say.
I know, we should be a little louder. Roll call, Carol,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Sriram here, Steve,
Yeah.
and Tom.
Here.
Moving on to public comments, for items that are not on the agenda, are there any members of the public? Assuming there's nobody else from the public that's going to be commenting here at this time, I just want to call out the fact that Steve, this is the last meeting with us in the Transportation Committee for Steve Miller because he's moving to Vegas. Let's hope he makes a lot of money there too and help us make more money to figure out the situation there.
Thank you. It's been fun and interesting, and I wish you all the best for everyone and continued good health. Hopefully in 2021 we can actually all get together again sometime too.
Thank you. Next agenda item is a regular agenda, and we have none. So moving on to approval of the minutes, that is from the meeting of November 10th.
Hey, Sharon, before you go on, I'm just curious. We're all on video, but there's one person on phone, and it's not a local number. Is that the chief, or is that?
Yeah, that's Chief 425, the Seattle code. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like to approve the minutes. So can we, minutes of the November
Motion
meeting?
to approve.
Second.
A second.
So approved. And in old business, I think Robert's going to talk about the neighborhood traffic management action plan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members of the Transportation Committee. Last meeting, we had talked about our next effort being an additional outreach, going out to the community and providing some potential mitigation measures to address some of the issues that were raised through the initial public outreach process. At the last meeting, we shared some of the findings, and those findings were also shared with the council in terms of where the pressure points were for our community with regards to traffic, transportation, roadway safety, etc. And we are getting geared up to start the next phase of the outreach and looking at that happening initiating in February. And what we had talked about was, as part of that effort, there is going to be an additional survey that's going to be put online to get feedback from the residents to help us kind of fine tune things, as well as get feedback on some potential policy things that we would bring forward to the council in terms of how the community felt about them. And we wanted to share the draft list of survey questions with you to get some feedback. And so you should have received that as an attachment to your packet, and it is also available on the website in the agenda webpage if you didn't get it. And so the idea is that we're going to be having folks that visit the website complete the survey, and there's going to be another interactive map where some of the mitigation measures are outlined on the map, and they'll be able to comment on those in specific areas. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is solicit feedback from the committee with regards to the questions in the survey. If there are things that you would recommend tweaking, or if there are other questions you think that we need to add, or things that you think are superfluous and we should remove, this is an opportunity to provide your input and feedback to the survey questions that we're proposing to ask. So I don't know if you have those or not. I can either read through them, or if you want to go individually, if you have the list of questions, and just individually provide feedback and comments. Here, it's up to you.
I don't know, but the others, I do have them with me.
Robert, I didn't have any questions. I thought it was very, comprehensive survey. I thought it covered topics, so I thought it was fine.
Okay, well, thank you.
So the objective of the survey is still to kind of, I don't know, go into this situation where we're asking for, are there problems? And then people are going to say there are problems. And so are we basing this on some statistics that show that there are problems that need to be fixed?
Well, I say what we are going from initially is the perception that we have from our residents. And so if our residents perceive a problem, we are taking that data in, and as part of the work that's being done now, for example, with regards to, I'll use the example of speeding. We are comparing that with data that we have with regards to speed surveys that we've conducted. PD has put out the black box in different areas to collect data. And then we have a subscription to streetlight data that allows us to get some speed information based off of pings from people's cell phone. It's not obviously as accurate as the radar measures, but it does provide us with some information as to approximately how fast people are going. And so we're not discounting people's concerns, but we are trying to validate those so that as we look at, as the solutions are proposed, there's some backing for that. But I think aside from, confirming some of their concerns, there are policy related questions, for example, with regards to El Camino Real and side streets. And there were comments regarding safety. And so we're asking a question whether or not people what their feelings are about restricting left turns from side streets to El Camino. So that's one policy area. Another one is to rank whether or not they would like to see, for example, more enforcement on the traffic side versus more signage or physical changes to the roadway. So again, it's kind of getting feedback from the residents on some of these policy areas.
So my question, I guess, I'm coming at it from the other side, is that, have we shared the data, the safety data with the residents, and help them calibrate and see whether, the safety issues are really big concerns? Maybe they were overblown, I don't know, or maybe they are actually on the ball, on the mark and So we need to do something about it. I guess where we're going at it is just to make sure that we're not like having them show concern where maybe, and trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist really.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from. I think that what we are going to be doing is sharing that data as part of this next outreach phase. And so we will be, for example, providing, like I said, I provided a bunch of stuff to our consultant. Our consultant is aggregating some other things, but I like the suggestion of providing it in some format that is readable by our residents in terms of whether it's the speed data or accident data, et cetera.
I think that does sound important to include that, because when you talk to our chief and officers, they, we have very little accidents, and they go check areas that people complain about, and there is some speed, but it's not horrible. So it is important to inform them of the data. I think that's good.
Okay.
I agree. I'm actually one of those people that, I look out and I see things. I live on Stockbridge. I think it's quick. We had the black box come out and the data revealed that it wasn't nearly as bad as the sample set that I had in my brain. So to me, when we all heard that data, it was quite useful to calibrate my thinking and what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we will, like I said, we have the data. We could just format it and start putting it on the existing website. There is a documents area where we've already been posting a bunch of things, including the information that we shared with you and the council with regards to the results of the survey and that and the input that we've received thus far. And we can put that same data, we can put that aggregate data up there as well.
Good.
I think you're muted. There you go.
Sorry, to that point, Robert, I guess sometimes when you look at some of these questions, like, we're talking about the previous outreach efforts, show there's this concern, and would you support any of the following, etc. So then it's kind of, again, making the people feel more entrenched in their concerns without having the data first is my opinion, but obviously I'll go with the majority. Did I articulate my concern properly?
I think I understand your concern. If I'm looking at the questions, I think that there's one question that says, if you participated in the previous outreach phase, which of the following did you raise? If the committee thinks that that isn't really a necessary question, we can certainly look at taking that out. But there are a couple of questions, for example, leading to with regards to pedestrian safety. And that's one area that we wanted to get some additional information, particularly with regards to if there is the feeling that there is a desire for improvements on the pedestrian end, what type of facilities would be supported. We currently, the town has shied away from adding sidewalks. And so if there is a desire for pedestrian improvements, we want to get a sense of what type of improvements would be supported, if that makes sense.
But I do see concerns regarding speeding, for instance. I mean, there are questions regarding speeding as well.
Yeah, so one of the questions with regards to speeding, there's a related question of ranking options with regards to how to address it. I'm going to say that it is a perception, and it's not just localized, it's kind of throughout town. And so one of the ways to address it is increasing enforcement, for example. Would they rather see that than additional signs pop up throughout town? right?
So I don't want to keep flogging this. I'm sorry. I apologize to all of you. But I just wanted to say, Robert, that the way I looked at it is that you're saying clearly here that speeding has been noted as a top concern for the town residents. So if I were a town resident and I did not have the data, I would definitely say, oh yeah, that's right. I mean, speeding is a top concern. While maybe the data doesn't support the fact that there is, dangerous speeding or hazardous speeding going on. So either the way the question has been framed, or the fact that the data needs to be shared first before, saying that, speeding, there's never been any speeding, or, every 80% of the people speed, etc. That's my concern with this survey, specifically with regards to speeding and a couple of other points like that.
Sriram, I think, and this, I don't mean to confuse things, but I think that also lends itself to the prior question about improvements relative to sidewalks and the rest. I mean, I would assume the goal is a perception of safety while walking the streets of Atherton. And will asphalt walkways produce that, or decomposed granite produce that, or the perception of slower speeds of traffic around them solve for that problem? So, back to the data might help people realize that it's not as fast as they perceive, but they're still going to see these, whatever it is that's causing them to think that there's a speed issue in town.
Exactly. And that's my point too, Tom. You're right.
So is there a way to phrase either this question or, a series of questions in the document to kind of get to, or at least couch the data, or at least get to the right answer?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. Robert, I think that was a question for you. Sorry.
Well, like I said, I'm open to hearing from the committee as to if there's a preferred way of phrasing some of these things. The concern that I have with the data issue is I don't have speed data for every single street in town. And we can certainly provide the data, a link to the data that we have. But if you're saying that somebody is speeding on your street and I don't have the data for your street specifically, you're still going to feel it. And I'll agree with Tom is that whether or not it is a high number of speeders or not on a given street, there still may be the perception that people are going too fast for that neighborhood street.
So I could take a stab at, I think Robert, I think Tom articulated it correctly. Maybe I could take a stab at suggesting a different way of phrasing that question. Maybe we could say something to the extent of, there is a perception that, there is a widespread perception that speeding is hazardous. I mean, there is a hazardous level of speeding in the town. Please, click on this link to check the actual data, and then subsequently, if you still subscribe. I mean, obviously this can be wordsmithed to be done better, but I was just taking this. And so if you subscribe to the opinion still, then please rank the following options. Something to that extent.
Okay.
I'm just taking a first stab at it.
Yeah.
Obviously it can be done better.
I think it can be delivered sort of anecdotally, right? Folks who have felt the same way that for those of you who feel that there's a speed issue in town, and you want to smith it, not to say that we don't believe that there is, but traffic committee member Tom Owen thought there was on Stockbridge. Black box came out. I mean, this whole promote use of the black box. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Probably a good thing, right? But black box came out and the data showed this. We had a situation on Elena. Black box came out, data showed this. Santiago, wherever this thing has. So we could, you know, clinically put the data out there, which is fine. I think we probably should have that substantiating data. But I mean, I think the high level is like, there is this perception. But that gets to the other side of the question of what do we want to do about it, right? And what can we as a committee collectively come up with to, what dials can we change or move to affect traffic in such a way that, you know, the folks that are on the streets, either in their cars or on their bikes or walking, feel like it is slowed, or it is safer, or it is in some way better managed. Maybe Steve could take that on.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
I was assigning that task to Steve before he leaves us.
I'll get on to that.
Yeah. I'm on another committee with Steve's wife, so I'm doubly abandoned by that family.
Well, Sriram, I think you're in the right, going down the right direction with it, adding in some, you know, please look here.
I think there may be a way for us to put a link in the survey, so it pops up a window that provides a table of data for particular streets. And I'll work with our consultants to try and do that. But I will say that, you know, the way that the question predominantly is phrased is intended to tell our residents that we heard that this was a top area of concern. Right, and so I'm a little concerned about wording a question in a way to say, yeah, a lot of people said that it's a concern, but it's, you know, matter of factly just not there. But I mean, we should provide the data, and we'll try and do that.
Of
but
course.
If there's a large number of people that say that they feel it's an issue, then we want to make sure that they know that we heard them.
Absolutely. I'm sure that could also be incorporated there such that it's clear that we are responding to what the citizens have perceived.
Okay, so I'll try and work on that a little bit. And offline, Sriram, if you want to send me an email with, you know, your thoughts on it, that you can do that as well.
Sure, I can do that. And if it's okay with the regulations, then anybody else wants to, from the committee, wants to suggest any wording or anything, they can send it to me. Is that okay?
I would suggest that they can, if they don't want to bring it up at this meeting here, they can just send it to me. It'd probably be better that way.
Sounds good. So I guess with that, we can move to the staff reports. Yes, let's move to the staff reports. David?
So we, since we didn't meet last month, we have 2 months worth of traffic information for November and December. That information was sent out and hopefully disseminated by all. You can see that, you know, numbers for November were actually up a little bit. You had some people that were on midnights that finally got a shot at work a day shift, and so they were out there making stops, excited to be out there while other people are actually in and about the area of the town. You know, when COVID hit in, you know, when the spread of COVID spiked in the beginning of December, we made some adjustments to our staffing levels and also indicated that we would be keeping our contacts to a minimum. So we were not out doing heavy traffic enforcement, plus it's the month of December. Nobody wants to be Scrooge to our residents and give them a ticket in Christmas time. But we did make some stops, you know, when necessary. We made stops for violations. for safety reasons. But again, our numbers took a pretty big hit because of COVID. You know, that includes other things, is even for calls for service, if we can handle them by phone, we were handling them by phone as opposed to going out and meeting a resident or a party in person. Does anybody have any questions about any of the information?
Do we need to, is there anything you'd like to highlight on the total 2020 annual stats?
I think in comparison to previous years, our numbers were down in collisions. We had staffing levels that indicated about average for ourselves. Different types of collisions were pretty similar to where they have been in previous years, as far as majority of collisions being rear end collisions. We had one fatality this year for vehicle versus pedestrian, and you know, a smaller number of collisions that were broadsides or side swipes. The numbers were pretty typical for previous years.
Hey, Dave, I lost the thread there when you were talking about taking a big hit because of COVID. I mean, I'm missing that because, I mean, we've been in COVID for months and months. So what was the connection to these two reports?
November was actually a little bit more citations that had more traffic contacts than normal for November. However, December, the numbers are very low, and that was due to this in the number of COVID cases in the Bay Area. We're trying to keep our officers
Thank you.
contact with citizens down as much as possible.
I understood. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Sure.
If the rest of the committee have no other questions on this, we can thank David and move on to the future agenda items.
Sounds good. Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. So we have Middlefield Road listed in the future agenda items. Robert, would you like to get that kicked off?
Sorry, so the future agenda items is just a category there on the agenda for items to come up in the future for the committee. It's also an area for the committee to discuss whether or not there are things that they would like to see on the agenda. The Middlefield Road item, I think, as we had discussed previously, was a suggestion by the council for looking at Middlefield Road and whether or not there might be some things that could potentially be done to lower the predominant speed on Middlefield. And I think, as the chief noted previously, the accidents that we have on Middlefield weren't necessarily related to speed. And I think the committee had put the discussion of that item on hold for a little bit, but again, the discussion item for future agenda items is an opportunity for the committee members to talk about items that they feel that you all feel is important to talk about at a future meeting.
If I could on this, I didn't realize this committee decided to put it on hold. I think what happened, and you all can correct me, but I think that what happened is the council, and specifically Bill Widmer more than others, had raised this as an issue, concern about speeding on Middlefield. And I think he said that Menlo Park was looking to change the speed limit on their portion of Middlefield. I think they did, in fact, change their speed limit for at least a part of it. And we were going to look at it. That got referred to this committee. I didn't know the committee had decided not to do anything. Is that what you're saying, Robert?
Well, I think that at the previous discussion, they kind of put it off a little bit because if I recall correctly, there wasn't really a consensus on discussing lowering the speeds on Middlefield.
Okay.
If I recall correctly.
I do know that the council will be expecting something to come back, you know, so we should try to say something.
Oh, what did Menlo Park?
I feel bad. I should know. I have this memory that they reduced the speed limit. on a
Yeah.
part of Middlefield. Robert, do you know that, or Chief? Do you know that?
I don't know. I don't have specific data, but what I can do is I can reach out to Menlo Park and maybe have that as a item for information at the next meeting for the committee to discuss the topic. And I might, depending on what they have going on Middlefield, might actually invite them to talk.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned that we're not being responsive to a specific request from council to look at an issue that they were interested in. And now we're sort of, we're basically saying we didn't think it was worth doing.
So my recollection is that the last time, sorry, Tom, you wanted to say something?
Go right ahead.
So my recollection is that we didn't know that it was imminent, that there is action going to be taking place in terms of lowering or changing the speed limit one way or the other. And the last point that stuck in my memory is Chief mentioning the fact that the accidents weren't really related to speeding. B, it could only lead to road rage in a place where it's already fairly slow. So with that, the memory was that, there's action is not imminent. This was just another discussion going on. But if it is imminent, I'd love for my peers here to also jump in and comment.
Well, I think it'd be appropriate to put it as a discussion item at the next agenda then.
Yeah, let me just pause it. I'm a little concerned, Robert, that from my standpoint, I agree, it may not be an issue, but I would feel this is a process matter. When council refers something, I think we should be a little more responsive than to, kick it for 4 months and before we have some kind of discussion of it. Because there's nothing wrong with coming back and saying there's no issue, or we don't think there's an issue, or we think we're handling it properly. I think that's completely fine. I'm less comfortable with sort of not addressing it for several months, which is what I think we're doing.
Okay. Well, at the next meeting, we will have it on the agenda. We will have accident data, speed data, and I'll try and get info from Menlo Park, so it'll be an actual discussion item for the committee.
Because it's on the future, we can't discuss it today. Is that kind of the idea?
You can discuss it as a future item, but it's not a discussion item where the committee would make recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess so we'll go ahead and then, so Robert, you're going to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, correct?
That's correct. And we'll have backup information to go along with it.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. And moving on to public comments.
Oh, wait, I have something I would like to be on a future agenda.
Please.
The no right turn on red signs at Oak Grove and Middlefield. Pretty much as soon as they put them up, they were outdated because the school hours, the MA school hours changed. And they're like these huge long signs of can't turn now. It's very confusing. I think it could be changed to something that is much simpler. Like I think we should discuss that. Like maybe no right turn on red from 8 to 8 or something. I don't know. But it's it's the morning hours, the afternoon hours, and it doesn't make any sense.
Wait, is that at Oak Grove or at Encinal?
At Oak Grove.
Oak Grove.
Okay.
They put them up to match. I gather somebody complained. They put them up to match the school hours, and the school immediately changed their hours the next year. So.
Okay.
So Robert, are we going to have that item also on the next agenda? I mean, on the next meeting?
If you would like it on the next agenda, I think you'd just provide the direction and we'll put it on.
I would like to. So thank you, Robert. Moving on to public comments. I do not see any member of the public here, so I'm presuming there are no public comments. And so the next meeting date shall be Tuesday, March 9th. And with that, I propose adjournment.
I second.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.
Shall just-
Thank you. Good
Good
luck,
luck,
Steve.
Steve.
Good luck, Steve.
Thank you. Take care, Mr. Mallard.
Thank you. Bye.
Steve.
Thanks all. Bye.